I have an ongoing sort of online friendly back and forth with one of the people that listens to this show about, whether Nietzsche or Dostoevsky was the greater thinker of the 19th century. And for me, it's Dostoevsky for two reasons. One, he encapsulates, of course, he's a novelist and not a philosopher, although he is also, a great philosophical thinker, but he's not writing in the mode that Nietzsche is writing. And so his insights come across in different ways. But the conversations, especially in Brothers Karamazov, and especially in the character of Ivan, really capture, and Ivan is, remember, that middle brother who's tormented by the mind, right? He has too much of a head to let his heart or to let Alyosha kind of lead his heart to salvation, right? He captures so much of what Nietzsche would see. And one of the reasons why I think he is greater than Nietzsche is because his philosophy is able to encompass the Nietzschean insight and still come out with conviction that, that God is good, that God lives. Whereas Nietzsche eventually kind of, without that North Star, rather than becoming the great Superman that he dreamed of, sort of dithers off into insanity and romantic failure. And when I say all of these things, I can sound very harsh toward Nietzsche, but I want to say at the outset that I am not trying to tear Nietzsche down in the way that, for instance, I kind of was trying to tear Hume down when we talked about him. I think that Nietzsche and Dostoevsky are even in this conversation because they are two people who saw what almost nobody else could see, and that was the implication of the death of God, right? When Dostoevsky says, or has his narrator say, right, that socialism is the question of atheism and the question of bringing heaven down to earth with the Tower of Babel, he is saying what Nietzsche, I think, also observed in his famous, God is dead passage. And Nietzsche's frustration, and the thing that in part I think drove him mad, was that he saw everybody around him accepting premises that implied the death of God, but comfortably carrying on as if nothing else had to change. And Nietzsche's madman who cries in the square without anybody listening to him or paying attention, right? Or else when they do pay attention, they laugh, right? They don't grasp it. Nietzsche's madman is sort of, it represents the part of him that can see what nobody else can see. And Dostoevsky, I think, could also see that. You have in Nietzsche a lot of great reflections on the consequences of, evolutionism. And he says, I think it's in Daybreak, he says, we used to look forward, we used to look up ahead for man's destiny and to find him in God. Now we can't look there, so we look back. But in our history stands the ape, and the ape is just an animal. And behind the animal is just kind of, a subconscious life, and behind subconscious life is just matter, moving around. And so we've basically become trapped, and our only way out is the transvaluation of all values, is to kind of reconfigure morality itself, or to understand that morality itself was always kind of an imposed construct that was designed to alleviate some of our discomfort, and instead to return, perhaps with a V, you might say, to return to a kind of transcendent love of strength, to delight in the nature of our animal selves, which he associates with kind of pre-Socratic Greece, with the Homeric hero, and with all of these kind of, earthier forces before the cold, hard rationality of Plato and the pale breath of the Galilean Jesus, start to suppress all of this. So that's kind of the Nietzschean approach to all of that stuff. And what Nietzsche recognized, and what I think you can see in reading Dostoevsky, is that Dostoevsky also saw those things. It's just that he believed that Nietzsche's answer, which was to transvalue all values, right, which he also foresaw. He did foresee that answer in Ivan and in Raskolnikov, but he believes that answer was manifestly the wrong one because of the truths of the heart that we talked about last week.